And Doherty, JP Morgan, thank you very much for joining us here at FundForum International.
It's a pleasure, thank you for having me.
You've been talking today about long-termism in the business. Tell me about that and why it's important.
From a banking perspective, I think the banks have been through a fairly difficult time. We're coming out from the other side now of the regulatory tsunami, as people have been describing it. And I think it is time for reflection. It's time to reflect on the culture of organizations. It's time to reflect on the governance of organizations and how we should actually prepare ourselves for what was described today as the new normal. What's this new environment look like, and how can we be a part of it and a vibrant part of it within the rules and in a sustainable way, so that we can continue to look after our communities, look after our clients, and look after our shareholders. And that's really at the heart of what we're trying to do.
How can the industry move forward in that way? Can they collaborate in such a competitive environment?
I think collaboration is absolutely essential. The industry has got through some of the challenges together. Of course we compete, but there's at the heart of what we do, there's a huge sharing in terms of technology, in terms of clients, in terms of the end investor. And so I think we've got to put our clients first and start to think about how, as an industry, we can serve those clients better. We have examples where we've got let's say a compliance challenge, and clients need to give us documentation. Well, if we created an industry utility that could actually help the client, they'd only have to give the documentation once into a secure unit, and then it would be helpful for the banks. They'd have exactly the same data. So there's those sorts of areas like data, where I think compliance, where I think we can collaborate, and that it would actually be really helpful.
Do you think the industry as a whole are sort of open to those ideas, or is it something that's so new and so difficult to take on board?
If we think about where we've come from and where we're going, it has to be done. I think there have been areas for years where we've created that collaborative support. We've created technology languages like Swift that the whole industry uses. And so I think there are really good role models and really good precedent in order to be able to think about these things going forward. But what it does need is a little reflection in terms of what are the biggest issues, what can we actually make a difference doing, and what is it that we can actually do, probably in the short term, but also in the long term.
And could this be good for reputation, if you like, as well? Because if you're seen to be moving forward and not flying under the radar as such, but putting your head above the parapet, is that going to help with reputation?
Yes, I think we have to be leaders in the industry. That's certainly the way that JP Morgan feels. We must set the right example, have the right culture, have the right controls, and really use that as the foundation through which we can move forward. So, and that we're not alone in that, and I think the industry has to move in that way. Banks have been through quite a lot, and I think asset managers can learn from the banks, as they seem to be heading in the same direction, and the weight of the regulatory environment is weighing slightly heavier on asset managers now than it has done in the past. So we certainly empathize, and we can actually help.
Where should asset managers be looking to for the future? Because some have talked about investing in infrastructure, say, on a global scale.
There's certainly a view that what we would call real assets, infrastructure, that's a really important area. So we've been talking a lot today about the fact that we're in a low interest rate environment, that the requirement for savings, because of demography and an increased middle class globally, will absolutely be the long-term determinant of growth for asset managers. So that's kind of where you start. And then you say, okay, so how can we actually enable that growth? What is it that we can invest in? We need long-term investing. And infrastructure, real assets, is the place where naturally that can go to. Because they have, if you buy a bridge, a toll bridge, that's got a 50-year life. And so as an investment, that's something that you can look at, and you help build a bridge. That might even be, that would be another really cool thing to do. So I genuinely think that that's where the industry is going to go. And we also talked about investor education. It's actually quite easy to understand if I own a bridge. It's much easier than trying to explain a complex derivative.
Absolutely, and also socially, in terms of social responsibility, it's very popular amongst investors probably.
Absolutely, and I think you'll find that a number of asset managers and our own have created funds, in fact, for a lot of social good. We've actually teamed up with charities, we've teamed up with not-for-profits in order to be able to help them raise money and start putting that to work in areas where it's needed. And I think from, again, part of the culture around our corporate responsibility plays a big part now in actually attracting talent into organizations. The younger generation are far more interested in the area of social responsibility at a much younger age. They've been sensitized to it in a way that older generation hasn't been. And so that has to be part of the core values of the organization. And so we actually see that changing. It's really exciting.
And Doherty, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.